Hi, good morning. I am from Quest, a senior lecturer there, and having taught many of years in early childhood and primary childhood, I would like to know, what do you think are some of those red flags for potential criminal behaviors that we as educators could look out for, such as, then making a referral for the child or even the young adults that we teach at the university to maybe seek some counseling, maybe speak to somebody about these tendencies. Dr. Chung, I know you with your forensic psychology, and you might be the one I want to direct this to, but both of you, I think, would be able to give us great insight. But I really want to, from an educator standpoint, what can we do to support the mental health by looking out for those red flags and catching that, monster within?
Thank you, Joanna. I think that there is I find that I always start off by saying that there's no simple answer to that question. But when you think about it, I think it's important also to look at crime and criminality. And there is the reason why sometimes there's this typology of crime where we try to separate between different types of crime. So for example, if in my area, I look a lot at sexual offending. So we try to understand the onset of sexual offending, and you will realize that many of these types of offenses start from a very young age. So that involves, like what Dr. Gesh has said, engaging in pornography, engaging in risky sexual behavior from a young age, and also child sexual victimization is one of the strongest predictor of an adolescent or a non-adult, before they become adult, for them to engage in child sexual victimization towards other people as well. So there is a very unique literature that looks into child sexual victimization and its contribution towards them being sexual offenders when they are adolescents or when they grow up. So that is the one side of it. But at the other sort of, when I look into antisociality and how these traits can contribute to criminal behavior, if you look at conduct disorder, for example, and one of my PhD students is looking into this. Conduct disorder talks about onset of delinquency. It's not so much, things like criminal behavior, but you will notice things like maybe they will have some form of cruelty towards animals at a very young age. Maybe they would be very disruptive in class in a young age. And I'm very cautious about making statements like this because and I think that this was something I wanted to point out because I saw a question directed towards me in the chat box as well, that we need to be very careful when we're looking at victim characteristics, that we are not looking at it in terms of a victim blaming attitude, as well as looking for some global signs. But having said that, when somebody has been, has gone through a very drastic change in terms of personality, those are usually some of the red flags that they might have undergone something that is unusual in the family. And if we're talking about, again, thinking about antisociality as something that is inherent within, some of these traits can already be seen at a very young age. So if you look at very high-profile criminal, serial killers, they would say that from a very young age, they seem to be a little bit odd. But the problem with that type of understanding is to sort of categorize them as being somebody who is likely to be a criminal. And that is important because there is biases. So as an educator yourself, what you will notice is that if you notice that a child is behaving differently, they're probably a very difficult child. And it has an impact in terms of how you behave towards the child. So you might give, I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying that it's general for people to probably provide them with less support or just to label them as being a difficult child. And therefore, lack of that support, and at home, maybe they are treated differently by their siblings as well as their parents because they are a difficult child. So there's this sort of interacting factors that we need to be aware of. So I think to just be aware of these biases as educators, as parents, is also very, very important. To not just think that somebody's just inherently being difficult and instead of finding ways to support them. So I hope that gives you some insights. Right, thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Gesh, would you like to answer? Yeah.
I'd like to add to that. Some of the things that you want to look into when you want to determine the presence of symptoms, it also looks into the types of crime. For example, if the child is a victim of bullying, or they're the bully themselves. It can be whether the child is a victim of rape in the family, or someone else rapes the person. Okay, so one of the things is that there's a drastic change in behavior. If the child has always been active, another child is less active, withdrawn, tries to hide the sleeves, don't want people to see the sleeves because of the injuries. When you approach a child, the child is hesitant to be close to you. They try to pull away because they equate adult with harm. You can look into, if you look into projective techniques, I would definitely recommend draw a person, draw a T. I teach these to the police officers in D11. As young as 3 years old, you can detect the predispositions towards criminal behavior, as well as whether the person has a tendency to grow up as a victim type of personality. So at certain ages of life, a child is supposed to be able to draw circles, triangles, smile faces. You can see relationships in what they draw. So in a way, having teachers, art teachers, is essential in school, as a kindergarten, primary school, education, even secondary school, because what is hidden will come up. If a child uses a lot of purple, the child shows signs of depression. Those are symptoms to look out for. So the child doesn't necessarily need to say, I'm a victim, help me. No. Sometimes they're so afraid, they can't even speak. They don't even know what's wrong. I've had a child before, she just used glue. Gave her A4 paper, okay? And all she did was glue. And we actually found out that is how she expressed that she was raped by her own father, the semen. So then we know, she couldn't articulate it because she was pretty young at that age. So projective technique is extremely helpful. So look at body language, abrupt change in behavior, not having good relationship with other people, the way they treat their peers. Some people who have been victims of bullying tend to lash out and become bullies because they were bullied at home or they were abused at home. They tend to do the same. Some of them act out sexualized behaviors because they had a view of their parents' pornography or viewed their parents having sex. The doors were not locked properly, for example, or they stay in homes whereby there's only one room. So the parents are intimate while the children are seen as being asleep, but they're not actually asleep, for example. So those sort of things that we can take into consideration when we want to see whether a child is at risk of becoming a victim or at risk of becoming pro-criminal behavior. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much.